Hello. Welcome to the THC Show. Inhaling some THC right now, and over the course of the next couple hours we'll be exhaling some truth, hope, and change in an effort to try to expose the world that we're living in and provide a little bit of hope that maybe by knowing the truth we can do something to act on it and get the change that we really need in this world. So and that is the hope for sure. Good THC. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from canamatch.ca join us for the 420 session and beyond. We'll pay a visit to the Healing Wave CSP RV and do a little catch up on what's going on with the CSP. And the CSP not just here, but the other ones in Canada as well. Primarily what we're going to talk about today on the show is court. This upside down, ridiculous, backwards world has your public servants using your tax dollars to launch a very expensive court interaction against us to try to prevent us from doing what it is that we've been doing here for about 6.5 years. The CSP, the Cannabis Substitution Program, which is what we're talking about, has been providing proper dose edibles, edibles beyond 10 milligrams a dose for people, because the edibles helps people get through the withdrawal off the hard drugs. And, you know, our city, our country was facing a public health emergency in the form of an overdose crisis of death and overdoses. And, you know, understanding the value of cannabis edibles in assisting people through withdrawal, we started this program. And there was no legalization at the time. I mean, certainly what we were doing in providing cannabis flower and cannabis edibles to people was outside of what the criminal law would allow. But the criminal law be damned when people are dying and there's a public health emergency, and an archaic, unjustified law is standing in the way of saving people's lives. So with that in mind, we did our best to do it the right way. We got VANDU, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, on board with us right off the bat, number one, with unanimous support from the board to go forward with the program and to go to City Hall and try to get their support, which we did. Held up a care pack of, in a plastic bag of high-dose cannabis edibles and announced that this was the real safe supply that they should be more interested in than the pharmaceutical safe supply that so many people had been pushing for at that time. No proper positive response from the city. We also told the VPD about it and did get a positive response from the VPD, but not in the way of any support, because what could they do, and we weren't asking for any anyway. We just wanted to let them know what it was we were about to do. So for 3 years we had long lineups going on outside of VANDU at Main and Hastings, or just up from Hastings Street, or up from Main Street, sorry, on Hastings. And eventually did get the City Council to pass a unanimous motion to support low barrier access to cannabis. Not long after that, finding a storefront and moving our operation indoors, we're informed that now legalization had happened in Canada, although I knew that, although it wasn't real legalization for sure. But that before the city was going to give us that license that they said they would, we would have to get the federal government on board with us. And we've been trying to do that ever since. In another, the 13th, in 3 more days it'll mark the 3rd anniversary of when our application went into Health Canada's Special Licensing and Exemption Division. And here it is now. It's been about 3 weeks since we got our final denial from them. There was no previous denial. There was 2 other intents to deny, but for some reason the email that we got a few weeks ago now is the final denial, like as if there's no other denial coming, which would be good, because one is enough, and now they can move forward with giving us an approval, you would think. So we'll see. But to get that, we're going to have to go to the courts. Health Canada is not willing, it seems, to even acknowledge the medicinal value of cannabis edibles in helping people get through withdrawal. We've sent them numerous scientific studies, peer-reviewed studies, not fringe studies, but mainstream studies that confirm that cannabis is an effective substitute for much of what those opioids and hard drugs are providing for people in the way of pain relief, and that the edibles are great in assisting people through withdrawal. And you would think that that would be, all that Health Canada would need, but there's way more than that. What there is, I just need I need a sip of my tea, that's what there is. What there is that's more than that is the amount of edibles that we've provided to people without any problems at all. So multiple tens of millions of milligrams of cannabis edibles have been dispensed through the CSP and the Healing Wave over the course of 6.5 years, and we've never had a problem. No one has overdosed in any way on what we've done, except that you can eat too much cannabis edibles and then it's not very comfortable, but it's not anything that's serious. It's just your body telling you that that's more than what it needs to do what it needs to do. But there have been no hospitalizations, there have been no seizures, there have been nothing of any sort to be alarmed about whatsoever. In fact, what there is hundreds of testimonials about how valuable having the option of cannabis is for people here on the downtown east side in the form of low barrier. There's cannabis stores available, obviously. People can go and buy cannabis, but it's priced out of everybody's reach. Anything worth having is $10 a gram at the government stores, and that's a lot of money. I believe it was on the show last week, but maybe not. But sometime over the course of the last week or so, it was pointed out that there's a couple different ways to measure pounds, it seems, which doesn't make much sense to me at all. But 453.5 grams is what is in a pound of things. For the most part, that is the pound weight. But in the cannabis world, in the dealing world, there's 28 grams in an ounce, and there's 16 ounces in a pound, and that's 448 grams. So in any case, it's either 448 or 454. There's a discrepancy of a half a dozen grams there. And I suspect the true measurement is the 454, although I'm not sure why, because I would think that the grams and ounces are part of that counting system, and you would think that it would work out like that. But apparently an ounce is a little more than 28 grams. So, that's the way it goes. Meanwhile, a couple of news stories out this week. A study coming out of Greece is showing that cannabis is very effective in relieving people's symptoms that are suffering from neurological disorders like epilepsy and things like that, Parkinson's disease. And a study out of Brazil showing that cannabis is effective in helping people with autism and the different phases or spectrums of autism. So here we are again. Cannabis is medicine. There was another one out about the use of cannabis in helping people with cancer. Many of the people that we're dealing with here on the downtown east side suffer from neurological diseases. They suffer from autism. They suffer from cancer. There's a lot of underlying health issues that are driving much of the homelessness and the poverty that is here. The people that are struggling with those things down here, many of them came from ordinary walks of life, from relatively wealthy demographics. But when you get sick and then you can't work and your family or your friends abandon you, what are you going to do? You're going to go try to find the population of people that can relate to you, and you're going to go to where all the services are being offered to people, and that's on the downtown east side. And that's where we offer our service as well, because there's this very large visible presence of people that are struggling with poverty and homelessness and addiction. So it's kind of the face of addiction. If you want to see what it looks like, you can see it visibly by driving through the downtown east side. You can see dozens or many dozens of people that are obviously homeless because they're living in tents and dressing in tatters. You can see that there's many of them that are struggling with addiction because they're like passed out on the sidewalk or looking like a zombie. You can see the face of addiction here on the downtown east side. But the addiction is not specific to the downtown east side at all. The driving force behind addiction are basically, health issues for the most part. So people have traumatic injuries through the workplace or in a vehicle accident or other things like that. Or they have ongoing disorders, that are genetic in nature or, other things, cancers that are environmentally induced over the course of a long period of time of working with harsh chemicals or whatever it may be. And so those people are seeking relief. When they go to their doctors, people in the mainstream, people in wealthy demographics, they go to their doctors because they've had a traumatic injury or they're suffering from these conditions. And for many years, the go-to for doctors was opioids, and it may still be for that matter. I doubt very much that the go-to for doctors is cannabis, and especially concentrates and edibles. So many people were put onto these harsh opioid-based drugs over the course of a number of years, driven in some ways by Purdue Pharma that came up with OxyContin and falsely sold it as less addictive, almost non-addictive opioid, which was absolutely not true. There was a wave of addiction that happened as a result of that, and it really touches all the different communities. And the people there that are addicted are invisible. You don't know, you can't see them. Nobody knows in their circle of friends and family, and for most of them, because it's not something that they're proud of, it's something that they're ashamed of. In many cases, they can't tell their doctors because their doctors are the ones who pulled them off those things. And if the doctors find out that they've been still accessing through other sources, well, then they get labeled a drug addict, and they get definitely a lower class of care from the healthcare services. So it's a problem that wasn't really the choice of the people that are stuck in those situations for the most part. It's not from being bad people. It's not from making bad choices, and it's not from karma. It's just from a greedy and corrupt medical system that allows pharmaceutical companies to very unfairly pervert how it is that medicine is dispensed here. Doctors in the North American medical system are not privy to the science of nutrition for the most part. They don't know a lot about alternative medical procedures because they're well ingrained and brainwashed through all of their schooling and time in the pharmaceutical version of fixing people's problems. That's what they know. That's who paid for more of their education than did themselves or taxpayers, and that's where their money is. That's where they make their money. And so it's been going on, and it's perpetuated itself for a long time now. So, what we're doing is saying, well, there's all these people that are addicted and having troubles, and the way out of addiction, the reason it's addictive, by the way, is because you can't get off of it. I mean, that's the problem. It's not that it causes a craving, that you want that feeling and you're going to go and buy some more to get that feeling. After the initial pain-killing properties wear out, 419, 1 minute. After the initial pain-relieving qualities wear out, what happens is the person can't stop using these things without having serious health issues, serious pain, all kinds of different things that happen when you're trying to get off of those kind of drugs. And so, we've been providing the option of cannabis to help people get through that. And that's the magic in what we're doing here, but there's no real magic. It's just a natural herb that works. And what we have is a government that is blinded by corruption, and the gatekeepers of it all have been tasked with not allowing it to be out there, used as medicine, used as a way to get off of hard drugs. And that's what our fight is that we're proving that it works, and we've done that repeatedly and for years. And they're steadfast in their position that they're not going to allow adults to have high-dose edibles without a doctor, monitoring and supporting that choice, and that nobody's allowed to sell any cannabis that doesn't come through a regulated system. But the regulated system makes the price of cannabis out of reach, and by their own definition is non-medical. So therefore not what people really want to have in the way of cannabis medicine. Well, that brings us to 420, which of course brings us to Mr. Wells. Well, Mr. Wells.
Hey, Sir Magnuson, how are you?
Sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Just a little bit, sir.
For Halloween, we're going to dress up as knights.
Are we?
I don't know.
You dress up as a knight, and I'll dress up as the day.
No, there you go. A little moon and a little bit of sun, right? So how are you this week?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
What are you smoking?
Today I'm smoking some Gas Face and Death by the Shatter.
So what I got going on here is from the candy bar.
Oh yeah, she always sends you something.
I always send you something.
I never get it either.
I've been sent. Well, I go and pick it up.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay.
Well, I go over to where she is. Yes. I go to do my little trip.
Yeah.
And she always provides a really nice donation for the CSP.
Yes, she does. She's awesome.
So. And then tucked into the donation, I'll find that.
Nothing that says for Glenn, right?
No, and I didn't see that note in there. I must have slipped down.
Yeah, it fell out on the way crossing the ferry.
It is very, very beautiful.
It is beautiful. Like the smell.
Crystally and smelly. It's a strawberry diesel.
That's a strawberry diesel.
Yeah, that's twice in a row she's drinking the strawberry diesel.
Nice stuff.
So check out the candy bar.
Yeah, the candy bar, great place, and they were the one that made our 200 cupcakes too. So.
Well, the cupcakes for our 200th anniversary.
200.
I don't think there was 200 cupcakes.
No, the 200. Yes.
Language is important.
Yes, it is, especially when you're stoned.
I gotta light this before it's not 420 anymore.
There we go. It's 422. I think we're late anyways.
No. 422 is still 420 something.
Okay, all right.
It goes right up to 429.59.
Does it? All right.
Well, you need that.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation. You can interpret it any way you want. If you think you've got 60 seconds to get there, that's fine with me. I don't care who's the competition with anyway. What are you going to win?
It's almost 420 somewhere,
but
right?
for me, I always figure you got 10 minutes. You should have 10 minutes. It's still 4:29. It's still 4:20 something. Well, we need to be cut. We need to be cut a little slack.
Yeah, just a little slack.
Everybody needs to be cut a little slack.
Stoners. Well,
the world is so judgmental.
Yeah, I know.
So many people are so judgmental. I'm being judgmental about the judgmental people, mind you, at this point.
Are you judging the judgmental people?
Mostly I'm judging myself,
Okay, all right. Are you judgmental?
I am.
You're not.
When I drive.
Only when you drive. Okay. Yeah, I'm judging judgmental about how other people drive, yes.
Yeah. I get mad at them,
well,
and I'm like, what good does it do to get mad at somebody? They don't know I'm mad at them. It's not going to change their behavior at all. All I've done is taken a little bit of my time that could have been spent feeling perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And now I'm gritting my teeth a little bit because I'm mad at some guy on the road that cut somebody off or drove in the lane you're not allowed to, But the thing is, I do the same things under certain circumstances that I get mad at other people for.
People get mad at you.
That's what drives me nuts.
I do the same thing.
Well, and when they're mad at me, they don't know what's going on with me. They don't know the good reason that I have for being in that lane where you're not supposed to be.
It's the yin and yang of everything. There's good drivers and there's crappy drivers, right?
Yeah, but I'm more talking about the tendency of human beings to be very harsh with their fellow human beings.
Yes.
But
they can be also very harsh on themselves too.
Well, that's another story.
Right, we're our own worst critics sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes people let what they do themselves slide because
that's because that's the way they are.
But the judgmental side of things, we're very harsh on each other, and we need a little more humanity going on here for sure. I mean, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
And they get caught up in the moment lots of times. They they're in a situation, and the way to get out of the situation actually can make it worse. But they don't see that at the time because this is the nature of being human.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
and see it afterwards.
You see it afterwards, yeah.
And then we have to apologize. Right?
Well, you can or you can't.
You
should or you shouldn't. You may or you may not. You know?
Yeah. Some people
Speaking
wouldn't.
of apologies.
Uh-oh.
What did I do? When are we going to get that heartfelt apology that we deserve for all of the pain and suffering in the lives of all of our friends, families, and comrades?
100 years from now, when they're talking about us as part of history, to know
it's the craziest thing,
It comes when you're dead, right?
People forget, and it's kind of like the judgmental thing where, you forget that the thing you're now mad at this person for doing is something you did yourself, under circumstances that you felt were justified, or that, you just didn't know any better at the time, or whatever, right? But here's the government. Do they forget how hard they were on the marijuana?
No.
On people using marijuana? Do they forget
No.
the lives that they've ruined, the laws that they've enforced, the money that they've spent? Because here we are now, and apparently cannabis isn't so bad. The government is selling it all over the place. You can go get a license to sell cannabis. Well, you can try. And people have got them. And there's government stores and government licensed stores all over the place. So what? All of a sudden, we're not going to take you to jail and, in fact, go ahead and go buy it. We'll set up a store for you. You can come in and buy it. Now, you do pay your fine up front. There is that.
Because of the cost of the price of the weed, right?
Yeah, they're making
They've
people...
incorporated the fine into the price, sort of thing. Yes, right.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
They weren't nice to the cannabis community through legalization. They didn't do it because they decided that they were wrong, that we were right, that we're all nice people, and that they should just give us stores to go into.
Sure.
No, they've hated the cannabis community for a long time because it interferes with their ability to sell other products for the friends of theirs, the rich people that help people get into positions of power in democracies. And so it interferes with their ability to sell alcohol. It interferes with their ability to sell prescription drugs. It interferes with a lot of different things. So they've wanted it just to go away. And they've been trying to make it go away for a long time. And they're like, what's the matter with you people? We've used everything we can on you. We've used like a nuclear bomb to try to annihilate any idea that you would even want cannabis. We lied about it so that you would think it was made by the devil and it would be no good for anybody for anything. We've used the hardest and most harsh penalties available to us through the criminal law and through the
except
courts.
for death.
No, they execute people for weed around the world too.
Not here, in other places of the world.
Not here, although that's debatable too.
For us,
I mean, it's not like you're given a sentence of death.
No.
But when that squad of heavily armed police officers come crashing through your front door, you best not raise a hand or put a hand in your pocket or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Or be holding a remote control.
Or a cell phone.
Or who knows what. I mean, definitely people have died simply because of these prohibitions against cannabis.
There's some guy right now that's suing the RCMP because they walked into his home to serve him a summons for a parking ticket.
Right?
He walked out of his shower naked, and there was a cop right there.
Wow.
And he said, "Why didn't you knock?" "Oh, when we knocked the door open," they said.
Right, so then you get to just walk in.
Now he's suing the RCMP, right? Yeah. And then he went to the cop station and to find out what about his complaint. You're the shower guy. So now it's a joke at the station, right? So he's suing them. Yeah, he says
he should figure out when they shower and walk in on them.
I don't know. Justin says the strawberry diesel sounds like a great strain.
Oh, it's very nice.
Oh, it smells great to Justin.
You want to try some?
Yeah, sure. I remember it from last time. You want to try mine?
So
he knows there's shatter in there.
give it a little more of a light and get that paper back where it belongs.
Yeah, it must be a big chunk of shatter there.
It tastes like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
That is very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Candy Bar. Good to eat.
Speaking of Candy Bar,
you know, what's your
the CSP runs on donations, and huge thanks to the Candy Bar for helping us out, and to everybody else that helps us out as well.
Yeah.
And we've had another donation sent in.
Yeah. And he's going to do it every month too.
And this is from Steve Niemi.
Yeah.
And so we got this here. I don't think I want to dump it all out.
No, but
we have a bunch of pre-packaged packages of large dose gummies that we'll be able to
hand out to the CSP.
Break up into smaller amounts and have available for people here. We don't give out the big packages like that. And in fact, because we give out so much here, and we also give out edibles through the CSP that the people that are not members, that when they come and people come and they don't have any money and they're dope sick and they want something and they need something, we don't turn anybody away. In fact, we're giving out close to 200 joints and close to 150 edibles.
Wow!
Every day. Every single day.
Every day.
So it's getting a little hard to keep up with that.
Some of them buy those edibles too, right?
Some of them buy the edibles, and in a case like this,
$2 a piece or something.
Well, we would price them reasonably.
Yeah.
But in a case like this, all the money that comes in goes into the CSP.
Yes.
We have a CSP box out there, and we have a Healing Wave box out there.
Yeah.
And so anything that comes into the CSP in the form of donations goes towards the CSP. The Healing Wave doesn't take any of that money, just so you know.
And that box is full of those packages. That is really, very nice.
It's quite a heavy box. So.
And he says he'll send you a box every month. So
that's beautiful.
That is beautiful. It's going to help a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be smiling at that window when we out.
So I don't know if there's any...
there's all kinds of different ones in there.
There is. I mean, it's called Wonka Edibles, but I don't think that there's a website, and he hasn't told us
Wonka
anyway.
Used to be an old name from the very beginning. Like I can remember Wonka about 5-6 years ago, so that's probably where it's coming from.
But he said he doesn't care about promotion. There's no website to go to, and that's true for most of our donors that come through.
Yeah,
is that they really?
Well, I asked them about a website. I don't know if there's an answer, but I don't think there is, anyways. But. Yeah,
if there is, we'll give them credit on the next show. I'm more than happy to do that, by the way. If you want to give us a donation and you want some promotion for your business, please send them in to us. Yeah, and I'll absolutely happily do that.
You're going to be saving a lot of people's lives. You're going to be making people happy.
Well, it's mostly me now.
Yeah, it's mostly you.
My life is all upside down because I have trouble keeping enough stuff in.
Oh, okay.
So the one who really frets about it is me.
And, well, now we got a big box. That's going to help a lot.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Everything helps. Every little bit helps. If it's a regular monthly donation, that's amazing. That helps a lot. But anything random as well, it all goes out to the people in the street that need it. You never know who you're helping, but you're helping somebody that needs it for sure.
Also, I forgot to send you this, but Jody Emery is speaking on October the 1st in Victoria in support of lounges. There's something that's going on in Victoria, October the 1st.
Well, we should have her on the show talking about lounges here because she's the real expert and knows what's going on in cannabis culture.
Yeah, well,
another travesty of so-called legalization is there's no consumption sites.
Or we could go to her. She doesn't have to come here. Maybe we can go somewhere where she is.
I'll go wherever Jody is. If she tells me where she is and I can go there, I will go there. I will bring a recording device and sit her down and talk to her.
Let's go.
Yeah, we really miss Jody. She's been inactive for quite a while because she was more active than an army of people would have been for a number of years. And she didn't really burn herself out, although I think she really, really did need to have some me time, and at this point she's got a small family going on, and she was so active, that it would be impossible, I'm sure, for anybody to not burn out. And she was such a trooper. My first time I met Jody, there was a protest going on at the Western Bayshore. Nicholson, the Justice Minister, was in town. And David Malmo Levine had organized a small protest at the Western Bayshore to voice our grievances. And it was an epiphany day in my life where, for no logical reason that I can think of, I decided it was okay to leave my job site where I was in charge of a crew of people and go down to the Weston Bay Shore on a Thursday afternoon and join in this protest. But, I remember asking myself when I was pulling out of the parking lot of the big commercial site we were working on, what the heck are you doing? I asked myself. And I just said, well, I answered myself because I have quite the conversations that go on back and forth here all the time. There's at least two of us in here.
Okay.
And my answer was, well, I guess this must just be really important because, here I am driving out of the parking lot.
And the crew of people behind.
And so, I show up there. And there's a small, well-dressed group of people holding signs. And I later found out that day that one of them was a young lady named Jody Emery. Mm-hmm. She was in high heels and a dress. I was in work clothes.
Yeah.
But what really blew me away about her right from the start was, I've been doing protests for a while, and I don't know if you have experience holding a sign above your head.
No, that's hard on the arms.
It's hard on the arms.
Oh, sure is. Yeah.
And she held that sign up above her head for longer than I think is humanly possible.
Wow, hey, good.
That was my first introduction to Jody Emery.
Yeah.
And then she showed up at Cannabis Culture headquarters and became a staple there. And pretty soon, her and Mark were an item, and
there you go.
Ended up marrying Mark, and now she's not married to Mark, and hasn't been doing anything with respect to cannabis activism for the most part.
Yeah.
She's commenting, I'm sure, from wherever she is from time to time on things, and I'm sure she takes it with her in her heart and has conversations.
Yeah.
But really, she hasn't been willing to come out and speak at 420s or Cannabis Days.
Well, she's gonna do. I've got the poster on my phone. I can send it to you later. But she announced on her page.
So I certainly went and talked to her about this.
Yeah.
Because she was such a wonderful
I could probably
tool in the toolkit or weapon in our weaponry, and we would have loved to have had her come and speak at especially the last 420 event. Mm-hmm. But she said that she was disheartened by it all.
Thing, yeah.
That she put her heart and soul into it for so long that she felt that she had done more than enough to convince the powers that be, yet here we are in a form of legalization that's been foisted upon us, which is little more than an attempted hostile takeover of the cannabis industry by the Trudeau cartel of all things. And the promises made about low prices and easy access and medical people having easy access were all lies. And the reality of so-called legalization here in Canada is about paying the government large taxes at 3 different levels before it even gets to the consumer. It's about ridiculous restrictions with respect to packaging, with respect to growing practices, with the levels of security that are required, the levels of reporting that are required. There's a whole bunch of things going on with respect to how the Trudeau cartel allows its licensed producers to produce that keep the price way above the average person's ability to afford it. For the most part, higher prices than what was going on before so-called legalization. Certainly for anything that's in the higher range, he said, pun intended, is quite prohibitively high, over $20 a gram for what they consider their connoisseur brands and things like that. Outrageous and ridiculous, and eliminating reasonable access to the people that really need it the most. It's the daily use. If you don't want to use it recreationally, you just want to smoke a joint once in a while, it can help them feel good. That's all fine. You should be able to do that and everything. Yeah. But there's people whose quality of life is dependent on being able to consume cannabis. And without it, they don't have a good quality of life. Mm. Those people need to be able to access it reasonably.
Yeah.
And with the way the government has rolled out legalization, farmers don't have the option of just producing cannabis in whatever fashion they deem fit and suiting it to a marketplace that would determine itself by what it is that consumers want. Mm-hmm. and it would be available in all sorts of different forms, from cheap to expensive.
I'd buy an expensive gram or two or bag or
so
occasionally.
if it was brought to the market inexpensively, typically you're compromising quality in doing that, right?
Yeah.
Certainly it's not as good as connoisseur grown weed with all the conditions controlled. There's a lot to grow in cannabis, and I don't ever mean to make little of that. The people that have been providing cannabis into the marketplace, they go to great expense to do that.
They don't get a day off.
They don't get a day off.
No,
They can't go on vacation.
No.
They can lose crops easily.
Yeah, PM,
and
bugs.
Lots of different things like that. There's costs all the way along the way. And especially if you want to really do it right. If you want to keep the humidity right, if you want to keep the air moving, if you want to have the right light spectrum. And that stuff is not cheap at all, and needs to be replaced, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of other potential problems. Now, growing anything has its potential problems. You can lose all kinds of different crops, but I guess when your crop isn't worth as much, it's not as big a deal to lose it. But my point through all this always has just been that if farmers were allowed to grow cannabis, they would find creative ways to have it there inexpensively, as well as all those people that want to have it there expensively because they're willing to do it expensively, and they're not cutting costs. They deserve a big buck. Cannabis is very valuable. It's not like a head of lettuce where it's good for salads and it's good for sandwiches and a couple other things maybe.
Yeah.
Cannabis is multi-use. It's medical. It doesn't change what it costs to bring it to market per se. It does affect a little bit, what people are willing to pay for it. But in that respect, it's to do with, people that want good cannabis are willing to spend more for good cannabis. And if there was inexpensive, not such great cannabis in the marketplace, so that, people that don't care about that, people that don't, it's not a problem for them to have, I know.
I was just thinking you get inexpensive, good cannabis at the candy bar.
Well,
we're really led by right there.
Inexpensive, compared to what though?
Government.
Government, absolutely.
Government, that would be $20 a gram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be in their $20.
That's what we're going to compare it to because, yes, compared to a government, that would be inexpensive because it's gray market, right?
And you wouldn't get that quality of cannabis, down in lower, in the produce department of your local grocery store.
This would be your brownish lettuce.
But all this is just what a reasonable marketplace would be working out and should be working out. But instead, we don't have legalization that just allows for farmers to bring it to market and consumers to make their choices, and it'll end up wherever it ends up. This is about a tightly controlled, government regulated cartel of making sure that it's out of reach, in the ways that we're saying it needs to be put into reach. And so, that's why the fight is still here. That's why we're still doing what we're doing. This is not legalization that we've been fighting for, and we need to have proper legalization.
Yeah.
We do.
This is crop legalization. It's not even legalize, as we say, right? Legalize.
Legalize. Yeah, legalize.
Yeah.
Well, they don't lie because they're not allowed to talk about it.
Well, they lied that they would help that the medical people would be taken care of, so they didn't take care of it.
Oh, there's those lies. There's lots of those lies.
Right?
But I was just making a joke there because the government stores, the employees are not allowed to tell you about any medical benefits.
Yeah.
So they're also not...
Even though it's in their head and just want to pop up because they know,
They know, and they want to tell you. Yeah. And they also are not telling you any more about how the damages the brain or causes people to go schizophrenic or violent.
You don't see those fried egg posters in their stores anymore.
Yeah, you don't see any of that stuff.
This is your brain on drugs.
So you don't hear the government saying anything about cannabis being bad unless they're talking about kids. And then somehow, all of a sudden, cannabis is bad.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that thing I sent you that the Global is reporting there's a 93 or 98% increase in traffic accidents since the legalization of cannabis?
I did that. I did see that. So, what do you make of something like that? Because you know that that's not accurate with respect to cannabis being the contributing, the core reason why there's an accident.
Yeah.
What that's saying is there's a lot more people that have cannabis in the world now, that when they have an accident, that there's cannabis in the car.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the cannabis contributed to the accident.
Yeah.
Cannabis stays in the system for a very long time. So if they're testing for cannabis in the system, you can test positive for cannabis, and it might be 30 days since you consumed it.
Up to 6 months, I think.
So, not to belittle the possibilities of impairment to do with cannabis, because you can be impaired with cannabis. Some people are more than others.
Yep.
You certainly have a much higher risk of being impaired if you're combining that cannabis with alcohol and other prescription drugs as well.
Yeah.
So, that's what I can say.
Or smoke. Don't do both.
Yeah. But the statistics they're showing there are not really reflective of the causality of cannabis with respect to accidents, and that's in there. I mean, they're not. That's not what they're talking about, because they don't have those statistics yet, if they ever could get them. Because how do you know when the cannabis is just there from days and days and days ago?
Yeah,
and it's
like
still
I
in the
would
system?
never have a clean test, because I've got 42 years of me, so my fat cells are full of cannabis. They're probably all cannabis.
It would take
all I
months.
have to do is just do a nice little run around the police car a few times, and I'll test positive, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I burned some fat cells, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just do a couple runs
and it would be
around the
probably months before you didn't test positive.
Oh,
after
yeah,
running
it'd be
around
months.
the place.
Yeah.
But don't drive impaired, people. Don't drive impaired.
Alcohol is good medicine too. Well, I don't know about that. It can, I guess. So, I guess in some ways.
Well, I talked about it last week. There's no such thing as good or bad anything when it comes to medicine, herbs, those sort of things. Mm-hmm. There's good and bad relationships that are possible. Alcohol is a wonderful substance for numerous different things in your life.
Yeah.
When used properly, it's a benefit and an asset. It is also medicine. It's been used for anesthetics,
cleaning wounds and stuff.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Stuff,
So really no good or bad. Just what is your relationship with it? Some people have a bad relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh,
just like some people can have a bad relationship with cannabis.
I need water.
Yeah, I know. I got my tea. Here.
I got my tea.
I'm gonna see if we can find.
I got water too.
Yeah.
I got everything I need right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there one in here for me?
For you, yeah.
Yeah. No.
So cannabis is good when used properly, and it can be bad when used improperly. If people are smoking large amounts of swaggy, not such good cannabis, and that was going on, and I'm sure it's still going on. But I was amazed on my trips across Canada with the Freedom Tour to find people that in rural parts of the country where there's ditch weed, just crap weed.
We were kings. When we brought weed from Vancouver to a small place in Saskatchewan on the Trans Highway at a gas station, what? And you're going to charge me the same price as you do in British Columbia? Oh, fuck yeah, man. Give me a quarter of that stuff right now.
They were paying like $80 for an eighth.
Yeah, $20 a gram.
Of crap.
Yes. Yeah.
Smoking the whole thing right to their head. So when you do that, you are at risk of chronic bronchitis, which is no joke. But, it's not fatal for the most part, but it certainly can make life difficult to have chronic bronchitis. You can smoke too much concentrates and green out. You could green out and fall down and probably hit your head or something like that. You can puke for having too much. You can eat too much edibles, and you can have a nasty trip of, your head feels this big and you're swirling around in there, you're hanging on to poles, you're wishing it would end, you're wondering if you're going to die. So cannabis is not benign, it's not completely harmless. There are ways that you can hurt yourself with it, but that goes for everything.
But you won't die from it.
It's very difficult to die from an overdose of cannabis. Yeah. Your body, because of the way our whole immune system is being governed by what they had to name the endocannabinoid system. What the cannabinoids, what the crystals are, when you make the concentrates and you take the crystals off of the plant matter. This is plant matter.
There's crystals all over that bud. Yeah.
There's crystals all over this bud, but there's also the bud itself, which is leaves and stalk and carbon and plant matter. So when you're smoking that stuff, it's not good for you.
Nope.
You know, if you're smoking with too much heat, you know, either through your dabbing or through even joint
hot dabs
smoking,
are not good. 710
not good
degrees,
for your
not
throat.
good. No, and your lungs. I've heard some people get some COPD and stuff that from doing some hot dabs constantly, right?
Yeah, and there's something called popcorn lung.
Yeah.
That happens to do something to do with maybe the chemicals that are added to vape pens.
Oh, really?
So not the cannabis itself, but still the ingestion of cannabis through the different means that people do it. For me, back in the day, we hot knifed everything.
Yeah.
And that included bud.
Yeah.
And so we would take the bud and we would wrap it in tin foil.
Oh, yes, okay. We didn't have bud, we just had hash in Ontario.
We had a lot of hash. I hot knifed everything. Oil, we would put oil on a bit of tin foil.
Wow. No,
so
just hash for me.
And then, you know, one day, many years later, there's something about the oxides in aluminum that are not healthy for you.
All those burnt black knives, right? Yeah.
And in fact, I've got a friend right now, very sad case. He's one of the regulars here, and he wasn't feeling good at all. He thought he had the flu going on, and I ended up taking him to the hospital one afternoon. He was there for 8.5 hours, after which point they had discovered that he had a tumor in his lung.
Wow.
So lung cancer.
Wow.
And he,
that's not good.
you know, he's talked about how much he abused his lungs in the past with hot knifing and with hot knifing tinfoil. I don't know how long it takes for a tumor to manifest itself.
Wow,
you know, I mean, when I was hot knifing tinfoil, that was back
I never did any hot knifing tinfoil.
1970s.
Just the hash, right? A little ball of hash, pick it up while the knife was hot, and do it that way, right?
You know, I did lots of that.
I even had a knife stick to my lip.
I did that once too.
Only once. Pull it off, I had some vitamin E oil on right away. That's why I don't have a little round scar right here anymore. At all.
Yeah, I did that once. Got close a couple times.
Yeah.
I used to hot knife, like a lot of it was, you know, at a stove where you had the coil burners.
Yeah.
You put your knife in there and you let the tips get red.
Yeah.
Gas stoves work too.
Yeah, they were nice.
But I used a plumber's torch. I used a plumber's torch, and I had a little.
The blue one?
Yeah, the blue one.
Me too.
And I had a little stand that could hold, that would stand up there.
Mine was my knees.
I had the cutting of a tree.
Okay.
So a fairly large tree. I had a cutting that I put in between the two seats of my van as a third seat. But that's where I did my hot knifing. So I could pull up to a red light, you know, quickly click the torch on. I had one of those quick start things. Yeah. And I could hold the knives with one hand. Yeah. So I could work the knives with one hand, and then I would have to hit the hash or whatever right on the piece of wood there. Yeah. I had a pop bottle, so we would take a Coke bottle, and we put a nail in it, and then you shake it, and it'll pop the bottom right out of that thing, right? Yeah. So then you clean it up a little bit, and that's your toker. Yeah. So I could do all of that, you know, during the course of the red light.
Wow. Wow. We used to use the Coke bottle and a marble to make the hole in the side of the bottle when we did bottle Cokes. Right?
So would you shake it instead of this way you would go sideways?
Like that, right? And then we make a hole, perfect hole. And we break the bottle just because it was a marble, right? Yeah. And then you put your cigarette in there with the hash on it, and you would just cover it up and then pop it out and smoke it in the bottle, right? That's
old school.
Yeah, that is really old school. Like, give a stoner a problem and we can come up with a way of getting it done.
So, yes, I just admitted that, you know, I smoked cannabis and drove.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Always, for my whole life. I love to drive. Mm-hmm. I couldn't wait to get a car. Mm-hmm. I did all kinds of little jobs from the time I was like 14, 15, so that when I was 16 I could get a car. Worked with my dad in carpentry, although I don't think I was worth anything that they paid me back in those early days. But I did manage to get myself a car. I was working at a gas station at night shift at 2nd and Main Street, just down there. And I got my Volkswagen Beetle. And man, I'll tell you, there was nothing as cool, as amazing as being out after work. Now it's like 4 or 5 in the morning. Yeah. And I'm out for a drive just because I got a car and I want to drive. And you know, you smoke a joint and what an experience. Yeah. Like, what an experience. So I've been smoking weed and driving for as long as I've been driving.
Yeah, I got over 30 years of safe driving, and I smoke and drive all the time. But listen, if you're just beginning to smoke, and don't do it, okay?
Yeah.
I've got years and years of practice, and I even actually did my road test stoned.
Sure.
So I know that if I could do the test and pass, then I would be okay for the road. And it's been like that since I was 16 years old. So
I'm not in favor of impaired
I'm
driving.
58 years, neither am I.
No, I'm not in favor of impaired driving.
Justin goes, hot knives are the best memories. And Chance goes, I love marijuana. Yes, hot knives are the best memories. I've done some pretty weird things with hot knives.
and cannabis itself has something about creating these memories, like those memories of driving high at night
player.
By myself with the music playing.
Yeah.
Cannabis does not impair by dulling the senses.
No.
So that's not what's going on there. It's not like alcohol. Alcohol does that. Alcohol delays the synapses in the brain. You cannot react as fast. You don't think as clearly. It's a numbing of the brain. Cannabis is kind of the opposite. It's still impairing. Like Glenn says, if you aren't used to smoking cannabis, don't just smoke cannabis and get behind the wheel. Get used to what the cannabis feels like. Get used to what the effects are. Because the effects are, it's going to open your eyes a little bit more. Everything's going to be enhanced. So colors are going to be brighter. You're going to be like, wow, and look and see things like you've never seen them. You're seeing it for the first
you're
time.
a little bit more observant, I think, because when something moves out of place, you seem to catch it.
Yeah,
right?
you're wide
awake.
awake.
So if there's a person who's walking off the street or the corner, you seem to catch that because that's out of place, right?
Well, and that's the problem. People smoke too much weed and they're stopping a block before the red light.
Or they're sitting on the red green light going, oh, that was a good job.
Yeah.
Oh, it's green. Time to go.
that's called cannabis impairment. And if that's where you're at, then get out, pull the car over and go for a walk or something.
But they
would need to figure out a way to test for impairment that doesn't involve what's in your saliva or what's in your blood.
Yeah.
Because like later on in life, I developed pretty bad arthritis, and it can be really debilitating. It can be really, really painful. For me, those moments when you say, "Man, I need to smoke a joint," is a lot about the stress in my joints, in my ankles and my toes and stuff. And so when I'm driving, that pain is impairing. If I can have a few puffs of some cannabis, I don't even think about it. I just think about driving.
Yeah.
And other amazing, cool things.
It's really nice to be able to smoke a joint and listen to Dark Side of the Moon playing on your stereo. Or The Wall or something, right?
Oh, so
your
much
favorite album. You found
Radar Love.
Radar Love.
Oh man,
so many. Don't play Echo Beach.
I like Echo Beach.
Beach. There's another song that follows it, right?
Well, it's got to be the right song to follow. I can do it in my own head now, right?
Yeah.
I get music in my head. I always got music in my head going on. I don't know why, but there's some song going up there. There's some rhythm going on all the time, and Echo Beach is one that. It repeats itself over and over, and finally I'm like, hey, enough already with the Echo Beach. And so I did figure out a song by Chilliwack.
Yeah, there you go.
Gone, Gone, Gone. She's been gone so long.
The song's gone out of your head.
Typically what I do in those cases when I've got like an advertising jingle or some little tune that's in a loop, they create them purposely in loops. They get paid millions of dollars to come up with songs that will go into a loop that it keeps playing and playing. And so what I figured out I could do is I would just destroy the record. So while I can hear the song in my head playing, I also hear the sound of scratching of the record. And so that does do it. But the other thing that does it is to create an ending. And so that where it would go back into its natural loop and loop back to the beginning, if you can put a dun 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 dun, something like that in there, sometimes that can do it. But none of that was working for Echo Beach. But Gone, Gone, Gone was. And so then And so here we are at what was it, BC Bud Day, and we're listening to Glen FM because he was the DJ of the day, and you play Gone, 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 and then you play Echo Beach. I'm like, no, that's the wrong order.
I wasn't told them. I gave you the memo.
You never knew.
There was no memo on that.
There's a lot of pressure on DJs.
Somebody's asking, what do you think of vaping Delta 10, 8, or 9?
I really don't have enough knowledge to comment on that.
Yeah, I don't. I've never doubt. What is Delta?
Vaping,
Delta 8 is the chemical that's in cannabis, right? So, and Delta 9 and 10.
I don't have enough information to comment.
We'd have to ask.
We'd have to get an expert on there to.
Ask AI.
Could ask AI. I mean, I think I know some things, but I don't think I know enough things, and I don't want to start spouting off what I think I know.
Yeah.
Because this show is about truth, and I don't always find the truth.
We can't answer that question.
There's truth, and then there's opinion, right? And it's really important to understand those two different things. A lot of what I say during the show is my opinion. And that's based on things that I believe to be true and a whole foundation of them that would come up with whatever opinion that I have. But that's different from when we're actually talking about facts and statistics and we're talking about science, peer-reviewed reports, studies, things like that. So anyway, vaping, for the most part, as far as I understand it, the issue is not with cannabinoids being vaped. It's with whatever fillers or
whatever they're using to put in
what's
there.
the word I'm looking for that makes it more watery, makes it more runny?
I don't know.
The opposite of thickeners. Thinners.
Yeah.
So it's thinners and...
But that's for the nicotine vapes, right?
No, that's for both.
Why? Distillate doesn't have any things in it.
It depends how you make the distillate. Some distillate is so thick that it doesn't run at all.
But as soon as you heat it up, it thins.
But heating up.
That's why they have the little battery.
So I'm not an expert on these things.
Yeah.
But what I do understand is that there are things that are added
to make
to vaping, vitamin E or other things.
I know somebody who makes distillate, and no, the only thing that's added is the flavor. If you
to distillate itself.
Yeah, if you wanted to have your flavor, because
is that something is that then being put into pens?
But no, what they'll do is, like in the 250-gram jar, they'll warm it up so it is liquidy, right? And then they'll put a little white thing in there, and then they put terpenes. So they'll have a grape terpene.
What's the white thing?
It's a little white round thing, and they put it on a lab thing, and it spins inside. So you don't
know what the white thing is?
It's something that you buy that comes with it. You see it in all kinds of lab scenes when they're spinning liquids. There's a little white egg thing that helps it spin.
Helps it mix. Helps it mix. Probably.
There's that thing that
mix,
right?
Mix.
Yeah, it comes with it, right? So you have your grape terpenes.
My understanding is that there are some manufacturers that don't use those types of things, and there are some that do.
Hi Guys does not use any thinners.
Yeah.
I've seen them make their distillate. I've seen it heated up so that it is enough that they can add terpenes to it, or you can have it raw, because distillate is just an extraction of THC.
Yeah, I don't know originally if there was people not using the thinners, but certainly it became a thing, and then there was companies coming out that didn't have the thinners.
I thought that was mostly with the nicotine companies, so they're using a lot of thinners to make it less nicotine in their product, so that they can say that you can wean yourself off of cigarettes with this, right? So they're putting more thinners in it means that it was diluting the nicotine that's in it. So maybe that's where the thinners were. And then there are some cheap companies in the States where people were actually getting sick in their lungs and stuff like that. So. Yeah,
and there's typically knockoffs.
Some China companies or something.
Yeah, people making what are the ones that are regulated. They look like that, but they're really not, and they're using different ingredients and stuff.
That's again the way with everything with business. There's always going to be a knockoff. There's a Louis Vuitton purse, and there's a knockoff, right? They got Rolex watches that are good and knockoffs. That happens with all products, right?
Yeah. So buyer beware, user beware. Check with the manufacturer, whatever vape pens you're using, see if they're using any fillers or thinners.
If you're buying it off the gray market, you're probably not getting a filler. You're buying it in a government store, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know a lot of gray market people that make distillate and they don't put in.
I only want to tell the truth.
Yeah, I'm telling the
truth.
And I've never seen them ever use anything.
I have issues with the government prices.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just bash the government for the sake of bashing them. I want to not support them for the sake of not supporting them, though.
Yeah.
Because, they're not allowing for access to the marketplace for the average grower, and they're not allowing a low barrier type of marketplace for the consumer. And as long as they're going to run their little cartel and continue prohibition against anybody outside the cartel with increased penalties and increased money for enforcement, and the continued stigmatization of cannabis growers and consumers, then I'm going to continue to bash them and find faults with them for sure. But in doing so, I want to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what fillers or thinners they're using in the pens that they sell at the stores. There again, it's probably similar to our marketplace, where some of the manufacturers would be and some might not be, but I don't know. And I don't know what regulations they're involved with. For all I know, it says in black and white that if you're going to produce a pen for a government store, it has to have X fillers or thinners. I don't know.
Ask Matt Hatter, because they provide your cartridges for you. I'm sure.
Sure. Oh yeah, I've asked about what he's providing us.
He's got no fillers in there, also probably.
Of course, yeah, but I don't know that he has much expertise about what's going on with the legal ones.
Yes. Legal, I would say we're probably because they're all in it for the buck, right?
I know that overall you basically can't trust them to start with.
Yeah.
And I will say that.
Easy, Rory.
Their motivations are all around money.
Yeah.
In the government thing there. I mean, I know there's some people involved there that still love cannabis and they're happy to be selling cannabis, but it's all centered around money because the government's regulations have made it so competitive that you have to be concerned about money because, it's not like you have an abundance of it coming in. For the most part, the dispensary owners, prior to legalization, they were all doing really well, and they could cut people slack in different areas because they were making it up somewhere else.
Yep.
But I don't think that's happening in the government stores. I think it's a cutthroat industry that they've created there for no good reason, and so you can't trust them. That's what I mean. I mean, you can't trust your government if you haven't figured that out. I mean, we've had shows on it for the last 4 years. In fact, every show touches on it a little bit, but. You can't trust your government, and here, this is the government's legalization, and you can't trust it either.
No, you can't, no.
Whatever they get their hands on, you can't trust.
They don't want to be called liars by telling you that's good for you. It's recreational only. It's not medical at all.
They should get the hell out of the cannabis business.
Benefits of cannabis at all.
Get the hell out of the cannabis business.
These guys are idiots.
Let people say whatever they want to say about something. If it's not the truth, then there's ways to address that. But
cannabis is a natural blood thinner, which is
anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, it's true.
It's so many medicinal things, yet Health Canada won't acknowledge that.
No.
It's stupid as hell.
No, because they don't smoke it.
Or is it because
we need people to run the cannabis part of Health Canada by people who smoke it. Who know?
Personal experience would be very helpful.
It would be very expensive.
But, isn't it really just driven by the U.S.?
It could be.
The federal U.S. government maintains that cannabis is a Schedule I drug with no medicinal value. And is that why Canada and Health Canada, has the stance that cannabis has no medical value? Is that because we're subservient to the United States?
But the U.S. also owns the patent on THC, doesn't it? Because it has no medical value. Yeah, sure. It's doing the same thing as Canada doing. They're lying. All right, they know.
Oh,
yeah, they know.
100%. It's corrupt and wrong and all about money and protecting other industries. But I mean, is that what's driving Canada?
How many more trees there would be on the earth if we just were able to grow hemp and make rope and clothing and stuff and have paper made of hemp and stuff? How much
have you seen the fields of hemp across Canada?
No. How much more our environment would be better because of the carbon dioxide it's been able to take out from all the forest fires that we've had and stuff like that, and we only had hemp.
Well, we do have hemp.
Yeah, but not to the
thanks to Alan Middlemas and a whole bunch of other people that back in the day, I think Paul DeFleece might have been involved in that, but I think it was mostly Alan that really led the charge and got Canada to adopt a hemp policy for cannabis that was below a threshold of THC. And so because of that, Huge hemp farms exist, especially in the prairies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
I've never seen one.
In Manitoba.
But you can't process.
All you got to do is take
hemp
one of the lesser highways.
Yeah.
If you take one of the lesser highways in the summertime, you'll all of a sudden kind of realize that what you're driving by looks a lot like pot. Yeah, growing like 8-10 feet in the air. Big colas, like really big, beautiful colas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and growing right in the ditches, because when they harvest it, most of it's being grown for seed.
Yeah.
Most of the cannabis that's grown in Canada
it's not for rope
is
or clothing
being
or anything like that.
grown for seed for the government to sell to the hemp farmers to grow cannabis for some other thing.
Well, no, and also hemp hearts now, I guess.
Well, some of the seeds goes to hemp hearts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right, so I have hemp hearts and stuff, right? So
thanks to Roger Snow.
Yeah.
So Roger Snow is a grower from Alberta, and he's got a number of hemp licenses, and he grows the shit out of that stuff. I'll tell you. And, I mean, I'm not going to tell tales on Roger, but Roger grows an awful lot of hemp. If you get into one of the little high areas, and you can see. It just goes for miles and miles as far as the eye can see. Absolute fields of dreams. And at the time when I was meeting Roger on the Freedom Tour, and when we made the movie back in 2010, there was no big hype about CBD.
No.
There was no talk about it.
No. Nobody knew. No, I didn't even know much about CBD.
All of a sudden, CBD becomes this thing. Well, hemp is high in CBD. When you selectively breed the THC to almost zero but minimal levels,
that's high
what
CBD.
Happens is the CBD becomes the dominant cannabinoid.
Yeah.
And those hemp colas are just covered in crystals.
Yeah.
Primarily CBD.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's going on in that industry with hemp farmers and gleaning.
Well, I've heard that the price of CBD has gone way down. And that,
well, it should, it's not hard to
because
produce.
Anybody can just grow it, right? There's not going to be much money for the pharmaceutical companies when you can just grow it in the field, right?
Yeah, well, we've got acres and acres, like hectares and miles, square miles, and so much hemp that was being grown in Canada. It was a big thing. It is a big thing.
Yeah.
I remember I interviewed a hemp farmer up on his combine.
Yeah.
They had to have special combines for the hemp.
Yeah.
The ones that they used for the wheat would gum up.
Oh, yeah, because of the stickiness.
Yeah, very sticky.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm up riding on this combine with this hemp farmer there, and we're talking about it. And I remember he said, don't tell anybody, that it's lucrative, because we really don't want anybody to know. We don't want the government to know that despite all the regulations that they were putting on them, and there was a bunch of them, like they had to buy their seeds every year back from the government.
Wow.
You couldn't in farming. Yeah. That's the whole thing. That's why it's profitable. Because you produce a crop that gives you what you need to produce the next crop.
Isn't that what GMO is now? So
sure, Terminator crops.
Yeah, so they only grow once, and if they have any seeds, you're not supposed to grow them again. You're supposed to mount them.
Yeah, and with the hemp farmers, they weren't Terminator seeds that they were getting.
Yeah.
But they were seeds that were continually being pushed towards low levels of THC. So all those farmers in Canada that were growing large amounts of cannabis for seed to sell to other farmers, their job was to continue that selective breeding to make sure that they were breeding out the THC. The cannabis plant has its natural profile of cannabinoids, where THC is just one of them.
Yeah.
Because of prohibition and the whole marijuana thing, growers were growing for THC, and so they selectively bred high levels of THC into much of the cannabis that were able to get here.
Right there.
But typically in nature, when you would find a cannabis plant growing in nature, it would have THC in it. It would get you high, but it wasn't like the super high levels of THC that you get from growers that have been trying to get higher THC all the time, right? So cannabis wants to mutate back. When you selectively breed one of the cannabinoids to a level that's not natural for it, when it's allowed to just reproduce on its own over the course of a number of generations, it'll come back to that original level of cannabinoids that is natural for it.
Wow.
So they have to keep, weeding out the plants that are growing, like these seed breeders,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are making sure that the plants that they're producing are continually low in THC to satisfy a government that was so afraid of THC.
Because it's healthy.
And now they're so afraid of CBD.
Yeah. Because
although the courts are making good rulings about that too.
They want to keep us like on a treadmill. Let's get them drinking, let's get them smoking, let's get them out of here, and we'll make more money off these people or these.
So, Glenn, are you saying that perhaps there was some conscious thought involved in the whole prohibition of marijuana back in the 30s, right at the same time as they were figuring out the nutritional value of hemp seeds?
Yeah.
So they were just at that time.
They don't want us living to be 120 years old.
The Rockefellers
for so much longer.
So the Rockefeller family highly invested in a partnership with the Bayer pharmaceutical company from Germany. I mean, what are they thinking about? The fact that now it's science is discovering that there are these essential long chain fatty acids involved in our health and in our immune system that is the key to longevity and good health.
Yeah.
And that the main source of those long chain fatty acids is from cannabis, coming from cannabis.
Yep.
There's some of it in flax. There's some of it in most seafood.
There's some
chocolate.
Yep.
There's other things where there are some of these things, but they're in minor amounts. Nothing like with cannabis.
Yeah.
There's cannabinoids on other plants too. There's cannabinoids on peppers and on hops and on other vegetables, but they're in minute quantities.
This way.
I mean, compared to the cannabinoids that you find on the cannabis plant, named for those very cannabinoids. And so, yeah, this is medicine. And back in those times, back in the 30s, there was a couple of different things that happened. There was the science on the immune system with respect to the essential fatty acids that were scarce in our diets. There was the decorticator, the machine that was developed to deal with hemp like it had never been dealt with before. Hemp had been grown for thousands and thousands of years around the world for its fiber, for the most part.
Even the army used it for their uniforms and stuff, apparently, right?
Well, it was a huge problem when the fleet coming back from where were they getting their hemp from? I forget, but because they'd outlawed cannabis in the United States, the U.S. Army and the Navy, they needed hemp.
Germany or something.
So they were having it shipped from the Philippines.
There you go.
So Japan blocked the shipments of hemp that were coming from the Philippines that were being used for the uniforms and the shoes and the belts and the ropes and all these other things for the Army and Navy.
Yeah.
So that was pretty huge back then too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the decorticator was going to allow farmers, because what they had been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years was they would chop down the hemp, and it wasn't hemp, it was cannabis. It was the cannabis plant, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't called marijuana, and it wasn't called hemp. It was basically called cannabis, ganja, or whatever. I mean, it had other names back then. So they would chop it down and they would leave it in the fields. And they would let Mother Nature do its thing over the course of the winter.
Yeah.
So all of the heavy rains and the snow and the cold and the temperature changes and all of that would render the cannabis stalk to the point where you could take it and you could, instead of it being stiff and strong, it was bendy.
Yeah.
And when you bent it, the fibers would all come loose.
Yeah.
And the marrow that was inside there would all start to crack and fall out.
Oh, nice.
And so then you could separate that herd from the fiber and use those fibers for all the different things it was being used for. So the decorticator came along, which was this machine that you would pull behind a tractor, and it would chop down these cannabis plants and right away, instantly there, separate the fiber from the herd.
Okay,
so Popular Mechanics in the mid-30s came out with it was the front cover of their magazine. America's first $1 billion crop was on the horizon because of the invention of the decorticator.
Yeah, wow, eh?
And so right around that same time, there becomes the demonization of cannabis, the calling it of marijuana, which had started out down in the southern states to put down the migrant populations, but was seized upon, by the industrialists that wanted to protect their crops and their interests that they had patents on. And so to put cannabis down, they said that it was this crazy drug that was coming up from Mexico and driving people completely insane.
I know, we're totally insane. 42 years of insanity right here.
George Washington grew weed.
Yeah.
He was a hemp farmer.
What if his wooden teeth were made from hemp?
In some of his writings, he talked about the Indian hemp.
Yeah.
That was much more valuable than the regular hemp that there was there.
Wow, eh?
And back in those days, of course, the hemp would have had, and maybe they did call it hemp. Anyway, it would have had, I think they did.
What?
It would have had this, some level of THC. It wasn't until 1942 when the U.S. Army got into the selective breeding of cannabis to breed out the THC that then farmers were allowed to grow it again, in the form of this THC-less cannabis. So anyway, hemp for victory.
There you go. That was it. And then they had hemp stamps or something, right?
Well, no, the hemp stamps, that was back in the 30s when they didn't outright say that you weren't allowed to grow cannabis. When they first basically prohibited it. What they did is they said that farmers would have to have a special government-ordered stamp to be able to grow it.
Okay.
And it was cost prohibitive as well. It was like $1 a ton, which doesn't sound like much.
No.
But back in the early 30s,
that
was prohibitive, compared to other crops. And it was like $100 a ton or more than that. I think we're talking pounds in that case. I don't know the price, so I'm not going to tell you what it was because I don't know. Look it up. But to buy the medicinal, you see, I think that's what George Washington was talking about. Is that there's also this Indian variety of hemp that has a more medicinal value than the others. Would have had a higher THC profile.
Probably what we're smoking.
Here.
Yeah.
So then in the 40s, but the tax stamp, to finish that thought, the Marijuana Tax Stamp Act requiring all farmers to get this government to pay for this government stamp based on how much tonnage they thought they were going to grow. The trick is that they didn't have the stamps. So farmers had been growing hemp for all this time, and now this year things have changed. Now the government is telling you you're going to have to get these stamps. You're going to have to pay up front to be able to grow cannabis.
Yeah.
So they go to get the stamps. Of course, there's going to still grow cannabis. That's what they're all geared up for. That's what they know. There's a good market for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no stamps available. So they go to the government office. Hey, where's the stamps? Oh, well, we haven't got them yet. We're still waiting for our delivery of stamps. There's no stamps here. But hey, we are aware that your crop is your life.
Yeah.
For a farmer, you don't get a crop in, you don't feed your family, And so the government we're aware of these problems, and we're going to give you a subsidy to put corn in or to put some other crop in. And so they gave the farmers incentives to swap their fields into other crops. And within a year, they basically annihilated the growing of cannabis and hemp.
Wow.
Yeah, in the United States. It's
Yeah.
quite a history for sure.
Wow.
Right.
That's something else.
It's something else.
Yeah.
We could talk a little bit about alcohol prohibition.
Yeah. Wow.
Where, alcohol prohibition was driven by greed again because the Rockefellers had come up with the rights to all of this underground fossil fuel. And because they controlled the fossil fuel, and now Henry Ford had built a car, and now, they were going to start paving North America so that people could drive their cars, and people needed to fuel their cars, and the Rockefellers had all the fuel.
Yeah.
Well, fuel, a dry piece of stick is fuel.
Yeah.
If you ignite it, it'll burn. It'll provide heat for you.
Yeah.
And you can use that heat to boil water and run equipment, or
Or create condensation.
So plants,
Yeah.
trees, all of the life that's alive in the form of plant life on this planet is fuel. Some of it better than others.
Yeah.
Some stuff burns really well, some doesn't burn so well. Cannabis as fuel is one of the most efficient fuel sources of all the plants that you would use for that. Corn is what's typically used, and cannabis is 10 times more efficient than corn.
But yet, if you put cannabis into hempcrete is actually a very fire-resistant product.
Right. It's not fuel when you use it in hempcrete.
Yes, right.
But
it does better than all woods and everything else that we build houses out of. It acts as insulation too. It
so many different
things. Warm
things.
in and keeps cool in too. Yeah. So.
But in this particular time period, all of those dynamics were working together to complete this plot that we're living out the result of.
Yeah.
That the value of the essential fatty acids becoming understood, and it being understood that cannabis was the best source of those things. The Rockefellers, who had their partnership with the Bayer Pharmaceutical Company that was going to now invest in the ill health of people. So having people figure out how to live long, healthy lives was not in their best interests in providing pharmaceutical medicines for people. And there was other incentives there to get cannabis out of the marketplace as well, not just because it was making people healthy, but it was this natural, easy-to-grow plant that was being used in all these different medical formulations that the Rockefellers wanted to replace with their pills and synthetics and other things. And so, it became a target for that. It also became a target with the fuel, that the Rockefellers owned the rights to all the fossil fuels. And here comes cannabis as, one of the better ethanol fuels that's available, like I say, 10 times better than corn. So when alcohol was prohibited, it was all about Henry Ford and the Rockefellers. Henry Ford said that anybody would be able to drive his vehicle on an acre of hemp, as fuel. Yeah. And everybody had at least an acre of hemp. There were huge plantations of hemp, but there was, everybody that had any type of a hobby farm at all was growing hemp. They were growing it to feed their livestock. There was a variety of reasons. And so that was part of his original announcement of this automobile that he was going to mass produce, was that everybody in America would be able to drive one of his automobiles on simply an acre of hemp a year. Yeah. So hemp as a fuel, and not just hemp as a fuel, but plants as a fuel, became a target of the Rockefellers. So ethanol fuel was the big competitor to fossil fuel.
Yeah, I remember leaded and unleaded, right? Ethanol was leaded, right?
No, I think the actual fossil fuel comes both with lead still in it and with lead taken out of it. Okay. Although maybe they add lead. I'm not
remember the old cars, right? You had to know if your car was leaded or unleaded.
100%.
You couldn't put a leaded nozzle in an unleaded good gas tank because it was a smaller
But that wasn't the difference between ethanol and fossil fuels.
Okay.
That was all still to do with just fossil fuels.
Okay.
Ethanol, it's available through Mohawk and some of the other fringe gas stations here, all corn-based for the most part. But in any case, that was the driving force behind the Rockefellers funding the women's temperance movement to lobby Congress to make alcohol illegal.
And prohibition then, and so.
So 13 years later, what's happened is that, the Rockefellers have a good handle on selling people fuel for their vehicles, but if you got a farm, you know what Henry Ford had to say, and there was a whole bunch of illegal stills, using many different plants to produce ethanol gas. Yeah. So ethanol is alcohol. That's same thing. And so then the prohibition of alcohol was about stopping that from happening. Wow. 13 years later, there's a lot of illegal ethanol being produced out there. And so to stop that, the Rockefellers again funded the temperance movement to go and lobby Congress to end alcohol prohibition because alcohol prohibition was resulting in kids coming to school drunk, people dying from bathtub gin, gangs fighting over turf, people being shot in the streets, all that kind of stuff.
Blowing up and probably people being killed.
Lots of different things, So that's how that all happened. Was the prohibition of alcohol was really to protect the Rockefellers' fuel interests, and the ending of alcohol prohibition was for the same reasons. Now, alcohol had become through prohibition this very lucrative commodity, so that when the government prohibited or ended the prohibition on alcohol, they became the dealers of alcohol and took over from Al Capone and the rest of those guys. And took over a lot of the profits as well. Right. And they're still at it today. Yeah. They are still the ones that regulate all of the alcohol, in North America. Now. Because it's under the same label, right? Although the BC government is the BC Liquor and Cannabis. Ontario's the same thing. I do believe it's liquor and cannabis. Yeah. So Tilroy is an alcohol and cannabis company. Oh, you reminded me. So remember we were talking about the Karma Cup being available in the government stores in Ontario, and we were asking if she had sold out. Well, I have a list of the winners on my phone. The people, and Tweed was one of the companies that was competing in it. So I think that it has gone government's. It's very interesting. Judge's kit, yes. I think that was a government judge's kit, probably. A judge's kit of government weed. Government and different people. But, wasn't that something prohibited through the Cannabis Act with respect to how they were allowed? They can make their own rules, so maybe in Ontario they were allowed to do that because she was able to sell into the store, so there must be some sort of rule that allows them to do that, right? Wow. So yeah, so the legal side of things took over the Karma Cup. I guess so. Yeah, she was maybe convinced to go that way. I don't know. In order for the Karma Cup to live on, I guess that was the way for it to go. So yeah, and the awards I think are this weekend, and there's a consumption party and stuff like that. Wow. Yeah, where they're allowing consumption. We just need to win the low barrier battle. Yeah, and then it'll all be good. Yeah, we need to win a lounges battle too, so we can have lounges once again. Yeah. Well, we have it here. I mean, certainly that's low barrier. Yeah. To not have consumption lounges, that's a high barrier. So many landlords that will let you smoke cannabis on their property or in their property. So what am I supposed to do, right? Well, and for tourists as well. Yeah. Most of the hotels and motels and what have you, they don't allow you to consume on site. No. So what are you supposed to do? One little secret, they don't know when you can do a dab in a room. Dabs don't smell like joints, so dab away. But that still doesn't take away from the need to have consumption spaces for people. Yeah. It's such a social thing. We're living in troubled times here. There's a lot of suicides. There's a lot of troubled people. To have a consumption lounge for cannabis where you can go and meet with people and talk about things. I mean, there's a lot of counseling and therapy that goes on in these places. There's some that goes on in the liquor consumption, establishments that are there. People drown their sorrows with alcohol. They get sympathetic ears from different bartenders. Yeah. It's a community meeting place where things get worked out for people in a lot of cases. Now, alcohol, of course, has that downside where fights you can end up a little too much counseling. I'll counsel you, all right. And then we got Jeremiah's idea where you can go and smoke and play video games. What's the name of the High Score? High Score, yeah. So that's their cannabis culture too. That's a great idea. Lots of people do that at home. For them to not allow free human beings to have a space to occupy and consume cannabis in is barbarism. It's outrageous. It's dictatorial. It's who the hell are these people that they get to say that? Go get drunk and we'll let you fight at the end of the night, and then we arrest you and put you in the jail system and stuff like that. Whereas that wouldn't happen with cannabis. There probably would be no 100%. Maybe there might be a fight if somebody stole somebody's bud or something, but usually people are always sharing it, so we're not stealing it, right? There should be cannabis-only consumption spaces. Yeah. You don't want to mix... There are at the airport. You don't want to make... Yeah.
right? It's cannabis and tobacco. Yeah. Well, there's a tobacco area too that's just tobacco, and then there's ones that are tobacco and cannabis.
I see.
Yeah.
And, probably human beings have the right to consume alcohol and cannabis if they want.
Mm-hmm.
So there should be those ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there should be also just cannabis-only consumption spaces.
Yeah.
Why not? Why can't people get together and have whatever type of space that they want,
Have some edibles, right? Smoke a few joints, sit around, laugh, have a good time, watch a movie maybe, I don't know. That's what stoners do. Listen to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon.
All those things are wonderful, and
or some moody
the question
blues.
is, why not?
Yeah.
And to answer that question, well, I'm not sure. I mean, it's because of the type of legalization we got.
Yeah.
It still includes stigmatization. It still includes lies. And they're trying to maintain, that cannabis is harmful and bad for you, and we've got to use the criminal law against anybody that would dare get involved with it. Unless, of course, you're buying it off of us, in which case it's fine.
You can do that, yeah.
So, that hypocrisy, that criminal hypocrisy, results in policies and in dynamics of things in our society that just don't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And, so
you're saving lives here, and the government won't give you an exemption from it. That doesn't make sense.
This is the biggest one. This is the best and most glaring example. I mean, cannabis for me has always been, or the attempt to prohibit cannabis has always been the most glaring example of how we're not free as human beings.
Yeah.
But when you look to the extremes that we're pushing that whole concept here, where we have a public health emergency that's been raging for 7+ years now, of people dying of overdose,
and more each year too.
More and more constantly.
Yeah.
And not just the deaths, but there's enormous amounts of people that are overdosing, not dying, but having their life impacted, for the rest of it as a result of this. This is a real public health emergency that's going on here. The genesis of it is fairly well understood with respect to doctors overprescribing opioids, and the fact that prohibition itself drives the increased demand for these things. Yeah. So the government policies and the policies of the medical profession are what has created this issue that we have. But this is a very serious issue here. Mm-hmm. And so now, we come forward and not in these later stages. We've been on scene for going on 7 years, demonstrating daily that cannabis is an answer to this public health emergency.
Yeah. Every day and I tell people about it, you tell people about it, yeah.
Lots of people know. We've got lots of support in the community with the other harm reduction groups, even with the municipality here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got some support from the police because we're less than a block away from their police station.
Yeah, and we're still here.
And they know all about us. And yes, they did raid us. And that's why we're going to court.
Yeah.
But that was something that they had to do, and none of the officers on scene that day were very happy that they were here doing that.
No.
And we set up right away as soon as they left under a tent, and operated until they gave me my RV back, and then set that back right up where it was all along for those years before, a year and a half before they raided us. And here we are now. It's been over a year and a half since they raided us. And we're 8 hours a day, 7 days a week doing the same thing here. So obviously we have some tacit support from the police here as well. But the federal government is where the bottleneck is, where the holdup is, where the corruption is. They're the ones who don't want to have what we're doing happen. They will not discuss it in any reasonable way to see how what we're doing could be made to work in a way that they would accept. They've never come here to see us at all. They've simply taken our application, taken all of the additional information that we sent, study after study after study, sent us an intent to deny, which got them a whole bunch more testimonials and science, sent us another intent to deny for the same two basic reasons as the first one, not regulated product and adults getting cannabis without a doctor. And we again sent them a whole bunch of new information about the value of what we're doing here and the importance of what we're doing here and the fact that lives will be put at risk for sure if our service was to stop. And yet they're still wanting us to go away, to the point where not only have they now spent almost 3 years in figuring out how to say no to us, and that must have taken a lot of work. That was not easy to say no to our application, because we purposely put in an application that really nailed it about how valuable what we are doing is, and all the rest of it. So somehow they managed to pay enough people enough wages to spend enough time to figure out how to say no to us. So there's all of that money that's been expended and wasted to come up with a no. And now the federal government and the Crown are going to spend a whole bunch more money, and already have spent a whole bunch more, but it's, the worst is yet to come, to take us and fight against us in court, where we're going to court to say, hey, Special Licensing Exemption Division of Health Canada has a responsibility to provide license and support for things that are reducing the harm during a public health emergency, and we're number one on that list. They're now going to spend a whole bunch of money to fight that accusation in an effort to try to stop us from helping people. So, couldn't be any more grossly exposed than what we're doing right here. And so coming up October 2nd, I'm sure it's October 2nd.
I know it's the 5th.
I don't think so, but we'll verify that for you as we get closer. So, but we're about 3 weeks away, in any case, from going before a judge with our information and having Health Canada and through the Crown provide whatever information they have, which they think may win their case for them.
October 2nd is a Monday, and the 5th is a Thursday.
I suspect it's on the Monday. That's the address. That's the date that's been in my mind, for all the time.
I know.
Because there's other ones.
I have a picture of it on my phone somewhere.
I mean, it's in November. If we succeed with the preliminary hearing in October, and by succeed, I mean we have the judge that allows us to go forward with our accusations against Health Canada, then that will happen in November, and that one might start on the 5th.
Yeah.
That date I don't have solid in my head. But I've always been pretty solid on the October 2nd being the start.
I remember us being in court on Thursday, so that's why I'm thinking of it being on the 5th, because usually they don't move it around too often.
This will be a very different court proceeding.
I've got a picture of it.
It'll be a different court proceeding in a different courthouse.
Yeah.
It won't be what we were doing. In all of we have 16 different visits to court on this already. All of those were all about setting a date in a courthouse.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the little piece of paper that they give you on my phone.
All right.
So
we will get you the absolute truth.
What day was that? That was like last September that they gave that to us? Probably. You don't remember?
No.
Okay, well,
not last
I can
September.
look back. I'll look back.
Not that. That's a year ago.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a year ago.
No? Has it been a whole year?
No. These court dates haven't been set. We had 6. It was.
So they were set this year?
Yep.
Okay, so this year.
Yeah. We had the 16 court dates to come up with those dates.
Yeah.
And prior to that, we didn't know what dates, but that was the dates we were finally given.
Okay.
And who knows if that remains where it's going to be or not. These things change all the time. We'll see what happens.
I shall let you go. It's like almost 1:45.
Yep.
All right.
Very good, sir.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you
tomorrow, actually.
Trying to stay out of trouble, but always have as much fun as you can.
I don't know.
Always have as much fun as you can.
Trouble with the cat and with
We need a revolving set or something.
All right, let me turn this back here.
We'll see if production will spend more money on a fancy set for us. So
There we go. They'll just say go to the one down the street.
I'm going to have a puff of this first.
All right, you do that.
Because it helps to ground me. And we all need some grounding, but me in particular. We'll see what these court proceedings bring to us. If we get a resolution or not. If the preliminary hearings are such that a judge decides they should go ahead, that'll be in November. By the middle of November or somewhere around there, if things go according to the way they're scheduled now, and I must point out that in court that seldom is the case. There's lots of adjournments for different reasons and other things. But all things being equal, by mid-November, we should have had the case heard, and then however long it takes after that for a judge to rule, and we'll see if we get some legitimacy here. We have been fighting for legitimacy right from the very beginning, since before any cannabis was handed out. We were trying to get legitimate about it. It was never something that was clandestine, hidden in any way. We weren't hiding anything. We were completely upfront about what we were doing with the collaboration that I'd entered into with Van Du. We moved forward to inform the city, to inform the VPD, certainly the media, and then waited a couple months to see if we could get some official support from the city. But without that happening, we still had to move forward. I had the donations in place at that point to start the program. And with people dying every day, we felt we really needed to do something and not wait for government. We'd already waited a couple of months, and it was just time to not wait any longer. But once again, we weren't trying to hide anything. We tried to be as upfront as possible every step of the way. I had signs professionally made up right off the bat, and when we would arrive at Van Du to do the weekly giveaways, I would put those big signs up on the vehicle right in front where the lineup was, and we made our presence very well known. And what we were doing very well known. We wanted that was important, that the neighborhood understood why we were there, what that lineup was about, what our intentions were. And our intentions were to provide cannabis, make it as easy as possible for people to access it, to be able to use it to get through withdrawal and get off the hard drugs. That's been the mission right from the start. So part of our defense is that we've never tried to hide anything. This is illegal by government edict, but it is not. But that's immoral when it means that you're going to be not able to save somebody's life. Like, without the ability to provide the proper doses of cannabis to a person that wants to get through withdrawal, what do? Maybe it's your loved one that's struggling like this, and what answers do you have for them? They're telling you, look, I've been stuck on this stuff for a while. I want to get off it. I'd love to quit, but I've tried a few times, and I can't do it. It's too much. The pain is too much. I want to. I believe I can. I go into it and I try, but 2 days in to that hell that is withdrawal, I just can't do it. What do you say to that loved one who's presenting that to you? You say, well, maybe we could get you into treatment. We're not a rich family, but if we pool our resources, maybe we can get you into treatment. But treatment doesn't work most of the time. So families pool their money together to help their loved one to go into a treatment regime that usually by design doesn't work. And back they are again, back doing the drugs that they can't get off of. What do you say to that person when you know that? When you say, I'm sorry, but we would put you on the list. It's a fairly long wait. In the meantime, we'll have to raise some money somehow and we'll put you into treatment, but they know that's probably not going to work. It's going to be a waste of their money. What do you do? What do you say? There's nothing. You say, come and stay with me. I'll look after you. I'll have hot towels and soup and a peaceful place for you to go through that week of hell. Well, that's a nice offer, and most people can't do that, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But here's an answer that we've been demonstrating for over 6.5 years and telling media about and telling government about, and everybody here knows it. All the harm reduction places know it. Van Duyn knew it when I went there and presented to their board the idea of making cannabis edibles available to the people that would use them to get off of hard drugs. They knew right away. They gave me unanimous support. There was no debate. They already knew. Many people already know that. Hundreds of people have successfully used our program to get off of these hard drugs. They know it. Their friends and families know it. In many cases, their doctors know it. But the federal government claims to not know it. The federal government says, well, we'll let people have those high-dose edibles, but they have to have a doctor give permission and monitor the use because those things are dangerous. In a world where Health Canada knows that most people can't do that, won't do that. The doctors don't know what they're doing anyway. It's all just a farce. It's all just a made-up excuse. Because they want to sell you pharmaceuticals. They want to provide a safe supply through pharmaceutical companies. They want people hooked on drugs, dying and miserable in the streets like they are. Because they've monetized that. They found all the right talking points about how they're going to pump millions of dollars into this obvious problem that we have here. And they have the solution through who knows what, but it isn't cannabis. And it's all lies. And the millions of dollars that they have spent of our tax dollars on this neighborhood to try to help people is barely visible. There's some needle exchange places. You can go and get clean condoms and clean needles and clean other things. There's some food services. There's these government grants that are given out to different places to do different things to do with harm reduction. But the vast majority of the money, the millions of dollars, does not make its way down to the people that need it, or it isn't being used in a solution that solves the issue here. It's going into the pockets of CEOs and other people that are at the tops of these organizations that are friends of governments, that have government's ear, that have paid lobbyists to win these contracts. And they've monetized this suffering and the misery that our family members are involved in to gain political points and to make money for their friends. So to court we go, and we'll see what happens there. We would love to have support at court. If ever there was a time for a showing of people that believe in what we're doing here and want to try to correct a corrupt government, this is the time. All the other 16 court appearances were just about setting dates. It was great that some people came out and supported us for that. That was awesome. But now it's for real. Now it's coming up to a judge who's going to decide based on those things that influence the judge. So if you can make some plans to come out and support us in court, just to be there, make signs if you will. Who knows what we can do with these court appearances. But this is really, really important. This is what it's come down to at this point. This is the court case of the day. We just had the Warneke, Seaman, and Martin case conclude favorably. We've had the Allard case that concluded favorably. We've had a number of them over the years now. The Howells recently. This is the big one right now. And we could really use as many people doing as much as they can to make it known that we're not happy about the legalization we've been given, that we are still going to stand up for the sick people and the poor people and the people that need it. And we're not okay with corrupt governments that think that they can dictate to us, what sort of natural herbs we can and cannot consume. And even though it's all based on greed and protectionism, they somehow get away with doing that. We need to fight this. This is the fight. This is where it's at. The real battle starts October 2nd coming up here, and we'll let you know which courthouse and if that's the right date or not at the time. Let's go outside and see what's going on out there. I'm liking my tea.
You just on.
Yep. Too much. It takes a bit of a toll. So the weekly weather report in Vancouver is, well, it's been overcast and cool all day. It's certainly not cold by any stretch, but it's not real warm like it has been.
Had some rain this morning.
Was there rain this morning in some areas?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's been a fair amount of cloud up there all day.
Yeah.
But overall, a fairly decent day, in paradise here. Been home for over 3 years.
Yep. We know the people that live in there.
The auction takes place. Hey, how you doing, Aaron?
Not bad, how are you?
Say hello to the folks on Pot TV.
Hello.
We'll come around and see you there shortly.
Hi!
Yeah, he is. See the smile. Signs.
Another busy day in traffic, which is good because a lot of people get to see our signs.
Yep.
And with a media that doesn't seem to want to follow the story, we have to be our own media. And this is a pretty good way to do it. Most of these people, I'm sure, have read these signs many times over as they make their journey home from work. So I think we have a moment of relative safety. Come on in to our humble abode. We need the light out here. That's what we need.
We're vampires. We're okay.
No, we need that light, and especially on a Tuesday. From now on, we have
Sure, some of that.
We have to remember on Tuesdays to bring the light out here, and it's.
I got light.
Yeah, that's right. You can provide that.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good. That's better. I don't know what it looks like at people at
Oh,
home,
looks better.
That's a bright light in my eye here.
Is it? I can tilt it down a little bit like that. How's that?
That looks good.
Better.
That's all right.
Okay.
Sorry. How's things in the RV, boys?
Yeah,
Has it been a fun day?
Been quite busy.
Been busy, yeah.
Steady flow.
Just another day, same old.
Got Ted in the back.
Hey, what's going on, people?
What are you doing out there? You're rolling joints or weighing out 5 bags?
Weighing up 5 bags, trying to keep up with whatever they need.
It's hard to keep up.
Trying to do the runs. And
The runs.
Parking.
We got 5 grams for $5. That's our real big seller. That's what people really like. They appreciate that a lot. It used to be that in this neighborhood, because of prohibition, the price of weed was basically $10 a gram wherever you went. And so, what we get told here, although we've had the dollar a gram for a long time going on. But originally what people were saying about that was that was such a lifesaver for them because the cannabis really helped them. But if they only had $10 and they if they had $20, they could go and buy a couple grams of weed, and it would still be gone by the end of the night, and they'd wake up in the morning with no money. They didn't buy any food, and their $20 is gone. Whereas this way they get 5 grams for $5. They got the other $15 to go and buy some food with, and so that's really, really important for people. And the 5 grams, for the most part, there's still at least a joint or two for the next morning when they wake up, and so that's a very valuable thing. And that's what the government needs to do, is make sure that there's that type of cannabis. If they're going to do anything, they really should do nothing when it comes to cannabis flower. They should allow the marketplace to decide, and easy access to the marketplace for producers, and then let the producers decide what they can sell their cannabis for and what prices are available to people. And there would then be that whole range of connoisseur, expensive cannabis down to relatively inexpensive cannabis that people can really afford. And that's what they need to do. That and edibles of whatever potency people want to have. We're full-grown human adults that, you know, can handle pesticides, and we can handle additives and white sugars and all these other things in our environment. Alcohol, for a good example.
40%, right? Yeah,
You know,
that's how they do.
And so, you know, to have the availability of high-dose edibles, along with, for sure, you know, government-regulated warnings about what can happen with high-dose edibles, and then that you shouldn't use vehicles and work heavy equipment. That's all normal and natural, although, you know, people can be growing their own cannabis and they can take their own extracts and they can make whatever potency they want. People need to be responsible for themselves. We can't have a government that decides that people can't be responsible for themselves, and therefore the government's going to dictate everything to us, and everything has to be child-proofed and safe and simple. I mean, that might work for driving 2,000-pound vehicles at 100 miles an hour down the road, but with accessing a natural herb and the concentrates that come off of that, I don't care if the government doesn't think we can be trusted with that. It is way worse when they don't trust people with that. So they need to do the best they can to educate people about the concentrates and the edibles. They need to get out of the flower business altogether and let the marketplace decide what prices should be charged as we go. And then I can retire, and you know, we can stop all these protests about that, and we can move on to other more important things that are going on in the world. So, you know, hey government, give me a break. You know, how much longer do you want me to fight the fight? I'm getting old now. So, you know, let me retire in peace by doing the right thing and allowing the poor people and the sick people, the addicted people, just the people, to have access reasonably to what should be easily available and would be if governments weren't in the way. So that's our fight. This is our mission. For now, we're in this RV waiting for some permission to go back into the store and operate a business with some dignity for people. And we'll see what happens coming up in court. And I hope that you guys are thinking about ways that you can support us, letters you can write, come on down in person, whatever. But, you know, help us, join us, get in on this fight. It's really, really important that for future generations, we don't allow for that hostile takeover of the cannabis industry to entrench itself and allow for regulations that only make sense to the wealthy people that want to get wealthier and not to the people that want to access a medicinal herb that grows easily and should grow freely and be available, you know, without barriers. That's our mission. So thanks again. Thanks for watching. I thank my producer Glenn Wells and for joining me on the show. The Pot TV people for allowing me the platform to do this, for all the people that donate to the program, for all the people that come and make use of the program, for all the people that have supported us in all the different ways that have happened for all this time. Thank you all very much. We'll continue on. We'll keep letting you know. In the meantime, look after yourself. Be independent. Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. Be good to all the people around you. Life is an echo chamber. What you put out there is going to come back to you. If you hate somebody, you really hate a part of yourself. It's just the way it is. So love everybody. Be kind to people. Be kind to those people it's hardest to be kind to. Don't let people take advantage of you. Don't hang around with people that you know aren't of your values. But don't spend your time hating them. Just be kind to them. And while you're doing that, whatever it is you're doing, whatever things are going on in your life, the most important thing always in the short little life that we have is to have as much fun as you can. We'll see you next week.